Thank you, Mary Beth. Welcome everybody to the Irvine International Academy regularly scheduled board meeting. And if I get my date correct, it is October 24th. We're starting at 6:07 p.m. We'll begin in a moment with a call of the meeting to order by roll call. I'll start from my left, and then we'll go online after those present here. And so first, David Sun.
Present.
And Doug Hewson is present. Brett Freeman.
Present.
And Felipe Delgado.
Present.
Great. Moving online, we have 22737 Holyrood Avenue, Maple Ridge, British Columbia in Canada. Miller Zhuang.
Present.
And I hear the voice. Traveling abroad and auditing tonight, but unable to vote. We weren't able to grab an address, but I do want to recognize Molly Chang. Molly, thank you for being here. Okay, and we may or may not, but she's going to audit tonight, but won't be voting because we didn't get the address in. We always appreciate your thoughts and comments too. Well, then we call our meeting to order, and yep, there we go. We have opportunity then for Pledge of Allegiance. Could I invite someone who would like to volunteer to lead that? Our flag is around the corner of the curtain here. We may have to shimmy a little bit, but Brett, would you do that? Stand up to us if we're able, and I'll just step around the corner.
Okay, please place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. I want to give each board member an opportunity to review the agenda, and when you have opportunity, if somebody would move to accept the order of the agenda as presented. It's slightly different. We're modifying and augmenting it just a little bit for just ease of use. Could I ask for a motion to accept the agenda as is? Okay, David, and a second.
Second.
Okay, Brett, second, and then we'll just go down the line. David?
Yeah.
And Doug is a yes. Brad?
Aye.
And Felipe? And Miller?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is what we'll follow then. There are no Roman numeral II closed session items tonight. And that takes care of also Roman numeral III. Brings us to Roman numeral IV, public comments on any items outside the agenda. Mary Beth, any submitted tonight?
No.
Okay, thank you. Then we come to information items, and number one, our executive director report, which is always just worthwhile, celebratory. And Dr. Bean, thank you for coming prepared to present tonight, and we'll follow that by a brief update by Delano on our fiscal condition.
All right, good evening, everybody. Good evening, board members. Great to see you. We've had quite a busy past month with just multiple things, not to mention running a school, which is very busy for the team. This year seems to be much busier than last year because of our, nearly 100% increase in enrollment. With more students, obviously, there are more things to take care of. Current enrollment last month was 373. This month is 371. And the reason being is that we have put an emphasis on updating all of our immunization records. And so we are mandating parents to turn in their records. And some parents are resistant to that. And so we lost a couple because of that, which is understandable. But we are held to public law in which our kids have to have updated immunization record in kinder and 7th grade. There was never, well, I'll just say Rose and Mary Beth have done an amazing job of updating and keeping that up to date. And I think that we're really good there. So that's why the enrollment has declined a little bit. And then the wait lists that we have are for grades that we already are over enrolled, well, not over enrolled, but at capacity. So mainly in kinder, big wait lists in kinder, 3rd, 4th grade. And those are our most impacted grades. So we're currently at 371. also working on turning in the Prop 39 application by the end of this week. We got 356 intent to return forms out of 371, so it's really good actually. And out of those 356, 257 are resident of Irvine. 71% of our students are resident of Irvine. They should be going to another Irvine school if they didn't come here. Another thing at talking to board members, listening to board comments last month from David Sand and others, we decided to slow down a little bit on the countywide submission. What we're gonna do is submit, we originally planned to submit in November, but strategically we're gonna submit now in February. And the reason being, if we submit in February, the decision hearing will be in April. When April rolls around, we will have caught up with our revenue from the state of California. We'll catch up to our enrollment. So if we are in front of OCDE and they ask questions about the countywide charter in terms of fiscal, right? We'll be in a much better position to be able to answer those questions and be able to explain that, you know, finally the state has chewed up its enrollment or its apportionment to our enrollment. Because right now we're operating last year's numbers. So even though we're only getting revenue for last year's numbers, we are running an operation twice the size we were last year. So good counsel from this board last month to kind of slow it down a little bit. So we're gonna slow it down, but that's not to say we're not writing it. We are writing it. The attorneys have done all the legal parts of it. Now I will be doing the academic, instructional, operational pieces of it. And I'll be getting Brett and Felipe's input on that once I finish Prop 39, and then I'll jump into the countywide chart. One of the locations that we'd like to probably establish ourselves is open up a dual immersion Spanish in San Juan Capistrano. So that's the goal, is to open up there at our next school, aside from the trying to expand our current school, IIA. So we're slowing down. Also tonight, you'll be giving me permission to enter an MOU with a sister school in China. And so let me just read a little bit about what the sister school is and what kind of partnership we want to do with them. There are two sister schools that we're working with. One, we're working through a connection with Felipe. That will be for elementary school. Tonight's is for our secondary program, so grades 6 and 7. And so I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but Chongqing? Yes, so Chongqing Bashu Secondary School is one of the top ranked schools in Chongqing and China. Its main campus is located in downtown Chongqing. Every year, Bashu School graduates attend top universities in China and abroad. It was founded in 1933. For 90 years, Bashu School has produced many top students, including politicians, scientists, entrepreneurs, academic scholars, and others. In 2003, the school set its sights on the world and set up an international department dedicated to promoting the internationalization of the school. It created relationships with school in UK, Canada, and the United States. More specifically, Bashu Secondary School and the Houston Independent School District signed a sister school agreement in 2018. A year later, teachers and students from Houston Independent School District arrived in Chongqing for a cross-cultural visitation. So in 2020, Bashu Secondary School officially announced the establishment of Bashu International Education Center. And then in 2021, Bashu School was officially authorized by the International Baccalaureate and became the first International Baccalaureate world in Chongqing. It's famous for its large scale and its high standard of education. There are more than 10,000 students enrolled in the school. And most of them are top students. Their average test scores each year ranking the highest in the country. So tonight, I wanted to share that in the executive director report, because tonight we're asking that you just approve that we get into collaboration with the sister school, and the next step would just be a simple connecting our 6th and 7th graders in a pen pal activity, and possibly video activity. One thing that OCDE made sure that I was aware of was that Ken Williams passed a resolution that no schools are to be connected to any Chinese schools that are affiliated with the Confucius Institute. So we made sure that that was the case, and this particular school is not affiliated with that at all, because we don't want to obviously go against Ken Williams' board resolution. So this school does not. So the first step is pen pal. Hopefully in the future, possibly down the road, we can then have some of our students go and visit the campus, a couple years down the road. On the flip side of that, not prepared to present that tonight, but on the flip side, we're going to do affiliate with another school for our primary and elementary level kids. We'll share more about that next month. Okay, so that's going to be on the agenda for tonight. I think that is it for my executive. Like I said, we have Prop 39 that's coming. We have our Halloween parade. Lots of, by the way, for each board member, you're getting the parent score messages. Oh, no, Felipe, you still not getting parent score messages? We gotta set you up, my friend. We'll set you up tonight. Just give me an email that you want to be sent to, and we'll make sure that it comes and sent to you. But in that describes all of the daily and weekly activities that we're doing here. So, am I missing anything else, Mary Beth, that we should share about? No. All right. That's the executive director report.
Get some reflection from board members. Any comments, thoughts, or questions? I will say thank you and congratulations on the Prop 39 form, getting that in and getting the request in on time. I'm grateful for that. That ensures our future. And
Yeah.
Very good. What else, Chris?
I have a question.
Yeah, please do.
I thank you for the efforts of the sister schools. I think that's great. Is there a single point of contact here at this school who is going to manage those relationships? And is there any KPI associated with them? I mean, is there anything that we want to measure or any type of level of proactiveness that we want to put forth? Because it's great to have, but you got to exercise it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the point of contact is Sandy. Sandy will be taking care of both sister schools. Anytime in terms of measures, I think first we'll get into a little collaboration, informal collaboration. That's what you'll approve tonight, and then we'll get into an MOU. And in the MOU, we'll spell out any kind of measures, KPIs, things like that. Memo of understanding.
Memo of understanding.
I was thinking more like an outline of what their
Yeah.
what the plan is.
Yeah, that would be an MOU, an agreement, on what we would do together. I'm meeting with actually the principal, I believe it's tomorrow with Sandy, just to talk through the logistics of the pen pal, if you guys approve it tonight.
So Dr. Watson apparently knows the school, right? I think his wife knows the school. So he mentioned that school has relationships with other international schools. It would be good to know what they're doing, so maybe we can learn from that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a new thing for us.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
So under the relationship, there will be student exchange programs or?
Yeah, initially it would just be like students exchanging letters, emails, videos, pen pal. In the future, of course, I'd bring it to the board before we even execute such a thing. In the future, it would be actually exchange students, right? Some of our students will go visit for a couple weeks, and maybe they can come visit here for a couple weeks. Yeah.
Will there be a possibility of some of the teachers spend some time
Right.
here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the possibility of like actually instructing over there, but certainly visitation for sure. Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
See a fundraiser.
Yes. Down the road, yes.
That'd be really exciting, actually, if the teachers with some of the students or learners from the school, we had an exchange and they were working on collaborative projects amongst them because technology allows it.
Yeah.
And that would solve some real problems. That'd be a lot of fun. But that, we got to walk before we run. But that certainly would.
Let's see how they pen pal.
Exactly. It's like one small step first. Exactly.
I got one for you, Mr. Green, changing the subject.
Yeah.
So you talked about earlier how you're changing the pace for the expansion, right? One of the steps in those expansion was looking for a principal for this school, right? Where does your change in the plan, where does that fall now? Because I think that was happening in February originally.
Yeah, originally, right. And so that would probably fall into the next school year. Once again, finances have stabilized. So finances start to stabilize sometime in March, April. And then all the way through the next school year, the new school year, we will be much better, financial status to begin hiring a principal.
So you would be maybe going out at the end of this school year or in the summer? What do you think?
You mean recruiting?
Recruiting.
Yeah, recruiting, we start to recruit probably March and April, because that's when principals start looking for different schools. And then we would hire for probably June 1st of the summer, to plan during the summer and then, right. Okay, and by that time, the budget would allow for us starting to fill some of these positions that we don't have currently.
Right, it looks better, and then we're
Yes,
mobilizing on
yes. And in fact, it will look better for the countywide charter if the executive director and a principal goes up and presents. Because they're always looking for the right leadership team. Can't just be executive director, it's the executive director and then a principal. So if we submit in February, we have a decision hearing in April, hopefully we can have somebody in April that will be willing to come in or come on board in June. Yeah.
I'll be available.
Are you available to, okay,
I'm just making that note.
I'll make sure you go through the interview process.
Miller, any thoughts from you for Dr. Bean?
Well, I like the suggestions. Slow down a little bit. Don't push him to the edge. Push him on the road. So that's good. I like that. Thank you so much for your consideration and also rethinking. And also, actually, the partner school in Chongqing, I've been to that school and taught with those teachers, a few years ago. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So I'm looking forward for that. That's a very outstanding school in Chongqing.
Great.
One more question. How did this originated?
How did this originate? Yeah, I was working with Felipe on a sister school from a former parent of ours who moved to Taiwan.
Patricia Sue.
Yeah, and so Patricia Sue has been trying to connect us with a school in Taiwan. And then from there, Dr. Watson's wife, we had actually connected with her before we connected with Patricia. Oh, there's a picture. Yeah, so we decided to first connect with the upper grade through Dr. Watson's wife. And then the next step would be connecting through Patricia Sue's connection in Taiwan. So, but that's how we did it. Yeah, they came to us.
So this is small, maybe the point of contact. Is there any parent involved? Any parent support?
So there's no parents involved yet. I'd like to have a board member, but I know you're already supporting the one school. Maybe David's son, you can support us on the. Yeah, that would be wonderful. So I'll connect.
Yeah, I have I have a Beijing and Chengdu schools ready for you to partner with. Yeah.
Okay, so we can partner with a bunch of schools. Now, let's start one at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll definitely get. I'll make sure that Sandy reaches out to you guys in terms of connecting.
We may find Molly wants to be involved in some of that as well.
Sure,
you think
assign
about
one to
her,
each member.
Yeah, you think about her commitment. I don't know what time it is in Italy or where she's at, but I appreciate her monitoring and being part of.
Yeah, just
Whoa.
let me know, if I might be able to, offer any help to make good connections.
Okay,
And sometimes during the travel, a little personal connection goes a long, long way.
Of course.
And of course, you have children and
Well, plus, use, other communication channels.
yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. We appreciate the executive director report. Delano, thank you for joining us online, and thank you for preparing the new format for the financial presentation. Does anybody need any help finding where that's at? It's a 12-page PDF. Let's see.
they have the deck, right? Yeah, it's in the board document.
Go back to this tab.
Yeah.
Let's do,
Oh, okay.
2023 when it comes up, 2023.
So,
At the bottom, which is.
so before,
All right, Delano, let's test your volume real quick.
yeah, before Delano goes on, I just want to say again, this is another example where we take board input very seriously. In your board comment, I'm not sure who made the comment that we need to be able to present the budget and numbers in a more simplistic, it was you, David, thank you. Simplistic way we can all understand. So Delano and I have been working on that for this past month. So those board input and comments are very important. So Delano, take over.
Thank you, Dr. Bean, and good evening, everyone. I want to echo Dr. Bean's comments there that yes, absolutely, we do take your input extremely seriously, and we do give high consideration to feedback, suggestions, because at the end of the day, we're all striving and working towards making a better product, a better school, and making your jobs much more easy and efficient. And I always appreciate you all showing up consistently on time every month, because it's not an easy thing to do as a volunteer entity. It's tough on families and in your own personal time. So we certainly do appreciate all the comments and feedback that we get, and then we certainly want to make sure that we're implementing those in a way that gives the desired results and expectations. All righty. With that being said, let's dive in. We're looking at financials through August. And again, as we sort of ramp up the year here, we're only looking at 2 months worth, but a lot has happened in August, because August is usually one of the more busier months in terms of activities within the school environment as a whole. Revenues for August, we received $161,855, and you can see here what comprises that amount, $139,000 in your state aid, EPA, and your in lieu of property taxes. Again, that's the bigger piece of this that we consider your LCFF funding. Didn't receive any federal revenues, and the timing of federal revenues are always later on during the fiscal year. And we'll see that materialize as we go on. We just recently submitted reimbursement for some federal revenues related to PCSGP, so you'll start to see that show up later. We did have some state aid here of $17,000, most of that related to ELOP and your special education dollars. And then we had a small amount of local revenues here in donations and interest. Overall, our budget for revenues, $5,045,000. And again, here you can see where our total revenues for the year was just $210,000. Very small piece of the pie thus far. I want you to sort of take a mental snapshot of this, because when you see the expenditures related, you can see why there is always this upside down feel to the year for for a great majority of the year. Doing a quick comparison here, I wanted to take a look at just to give you some context with some of this. So take a look at last year's revenue. If you take a snapshot of last year, and Dr. Beaton stressed this point earlier in his presentation, we were in August of 22, we're still being funded on our first year revenues, enrollment in ADA, which was much higher than it was in 23, 24. Right, in this sense. So you can see here where in terms of our LCFF revenues, almost $100,000 difference here from last year to this current year. Same here with our federal dollars, except this year, we're now looking backwards. So we were able to get a small amount of federal dollars in this year. Then other state revenues as well. You can sort that because now we have looking backwards in terms of the ADA and things like that for prior year revenues. So again, you can see here, revenues are much smaller in our current year because again, we're looking at much lower ADA in the prior year as opposed to the prior year, if that makes sense, where this number was generated. Expenses through August, we spent $549,000 in August. As I mentioned, it's quite a busy month. And you can sort of see here where most of this shaped out. Salary and benefits, roughly 44%, books and supplies, another 70,000, or roughly 4% of our budget. Operational, 216,000, which is roughly 39% of our budget. And then we have a small amount of other outgoing interest charges, things like that related to charter schools capital. Our total budget for expenditures of 4.8 million. You can see here our expenses through August. If you add that 549 plus the additional 300,000 or 200,000, we're at 844,000 through August, right? And that's just really 2 months of spending. But as I mentioned, those first 2 months of the school year are ripe with expenditures in terms of material, supplies, things like that. Salaries, obviously, because now you have your full complement of staff coming back between late July and early August as well. Another prior year comparison here, just sort of taking a look at our expenditures from one year to the next. As you can see here, look at our, yes.
I think Doug wants to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Doug. Go ahead.
Yeah, Delano, on the prior slide with the pie chart with the expenses being about 844,000. Does that include our borrowing? Is that why it's about?
Well, these are just there's some fees related to borrowing, Doug. If that's your question, yes, and they're built into this. Roughly about 22,000 of that is built into here. These are just expenditures, if that's your question. I'll show you on the balance sheet what the total amount of our borrowing is when we get there, because most of those borrowings are not going to hit the income statement. They're really just balance sheet activity. And I'll show you that in a few more slides.
Thanks.
Prior year comparison here, just looking at, again, a snapshot of last year at this time versus this current year. And again, you can sort of see here, right, more staffing on both ends of this. Obviously, benefits related to that will increase. And again, as I mentioned here, now we have more students, right? So there's an uptick there, and obviously on the operational side, same here as well. And we've borrowed more money. So Doug, to your point about some of what's included in that 800,000, that 33,000 that you see there that's the fees and interest that's charged by charter schools capital that we record on the income statement. Sort of giving you another look at our budget here vertically. You can see our revenues of 210,000. Again, as I mentioned, our budget here.
Delano, there's another question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm totally looking at another screen. So if you just sort of say my name, whoever wants the question, I'll be able to prompt to look back. Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Mary Beth and moderating.
Go ahead, David.
Okay. Yeah, two questions. So last year's number, yeah, in the comparison chart, last year's number is the whole year, right? That's for 12 months.
No. This is just a snapshot of last year at this same point in time versus this year, same point in time.
Or same, yeah, as of August the 31st.
Yes.
of
Yes.
2022.
Yes.
That's the same term.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And notice one thing that's really big, and that's operations because of legal settlements that we didn't have the year before. And that's what OCDE questioned us on at a board meeting a month ago. And so we have to provide them, well, I still haven't done that, have to provide them the legal settlement so that the board understands it's not an issue of operations, but it's an issue of these.
Yeah, board
Prior
director.
year, prior past things. Yeah, and just over here on the left side, you can see I dropped in a few lines regarding exactly, what's related to what in terms of, those additional costs and, things like that. So it's just a quick analysis here of those things. All right, I believe I was here. Yes. All right, perfect. 210 in revenues, as I mentioned, again, about 4% of our total budgeted revenues for the year. So look, whoops, a little too far there, Mr. Jones. There we go. Again, you can see our certificated salaries, roughly about 8% thus far this year. Our non-certificated salaries, which should be our classified folks here, about 16% of that number. And then you can see here, again, about a third of our operational costs are already through August. And as Dr. Bean sort of pointed out, we can sort of point to some of those things that were, essentially non-budgeted things that are hitting the income statement this year as well, which we have to adjust for at some point. Again, as I mentioned here, our total other is just the fees and services for borrowing, our total expenditures of $844,000. Subtracting our meager 4% in revenues received of $210,000 here from our total expenses of about 17% of our budget thus far, deficit of $633,296. To sort of show you something else here, which will sort of give you, this is our balance sheet. And before I go there, I'll take any questions on the income statement in terms of where we currently are, budgeted revenues and things like that, if there are any.
I have a question.
Yes.
Revenue, again, reminder, the ADA is based on total of 377 students, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
With 95%
Correct. Attendance.
attendance, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I know we're at 371 now. I guess it's just a question in general. Are we? Well, I guess we should be getting some more students, but we have to adjust our budget accordingly, right? Based
Correct.
on where we're actually at.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, Delano and I will do that. Actually, next week is we look at the budget, revise it based on a different number.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
the right now we're at 96.6 or 7 ADA when the budget calls for 95%. So,
May equal out.
it right now is, probably gonna equal out, but it's really the ADA number. I think we're trying to target is like 357. So
Yeah, and to Dr. Bean's point, we're currently working on a budget revision that will incorporate some new revenues and some new one-time expenditures, obviously, but essentially though that's just a shift in terms of taking away from the general fund expenditures. But we will adjust for any uptick or downtick in ADA. And obviously one of the sweet spot here is always coming in above that estimated ADA number, right? So right now our percentage is set at 95%, but if you can come in at 96, 97%, those 2% certainly helps the bottom line, because that's really just, what do you call it here? Icing on the cake, so to speak, or sugar in your drink,
So
just a
the-
little bit of sweetener.
Yeah, I know. So the
Yes, sir.
revenue budget, the revenue as well as the expense budget, okay? That number is based on a total enrollment of how many?
377.
377, okay.
Yes.
So okay.
And next time I do the presentation, I'll make sure I drop those in here for reference so you guys will be able to see those. But so keep in mind also that the revenue projections, the ultimate target date is April of 2024, because that's when that official snapshot for the fund for the year is actually taken, right? So that's when your final ADA is sent to the state, and then they true up the revenues and said, hey, we paid you this much, we should have paid you this much, either plus or minus, right? So it's really our target date is in April, and that's when we want that number to be as solid as possible. But it starts now, right? And all the things that Dr. Bean previously mentioned, it starts now with monitoring the ADA, making sure that we have that consistent enrollment and that students are attending at a high percentage, right? And it's really great because this is a K-8 school, so you know, short of, you know, students being sick or something like that, for the most part, you tend to see a higher ADA rate in that K-8 bandwidth, right? Or in that grade span, those grade spans, I should say. And again, our targeted here of 183,000 net income at the end of the year is kind of what we're projecting based on my previous statement about the April P2 number. But again, we're going to adjust this budget when we meet again, so you will see ultimately a different set of revenues here, and also some changes to the expenditures as well. Oh, bear with me, I'm getting over a cold from last week. Let's take a look at the balance sheet really quickly. And I did this again, sort of give you context. Where were we last year and where are we this year, right? So last year, you can see we had a lot more cash, right? That's because when we finished up the first year, there's quite more students, etc. We had, you know, donations and things like that came in, right? Take a look at where we are this year. Not as much, right? Because again, you know, we went through 22, 23, sort of limped along with that lower enrollment, trying to bring that back up. Obviously, we bled through a lot of cash for a variety of reasons. That's why you're seeing that here in that shakeout. Overall, our total assets of 389,000. Again, you can see here it's about 191,000 difference from where we were last year. About a 33% difference there. Expenditures, liabilities. You can see here 1.8 million. Last year, this time, it was 546,000. Most of that, as you can see here in these line items, you know, we have quite a bit more borrowing. And then we have some unearned revenues. And that's one of the places that I mentioned that Dr. Bean and I are going to lock in on and make sure that we spent down these amounts here. So that way we can then, you know, sort of make this balance sheet a little bit more presentable in terms of our liabilities. Overall, we finished the year in 22-23. As you can see where we finished here, with just about a little under, was that 800,000, a little over 800,000 deficit fund balance. You add back in the 633,000 deficit through August, put our total assets here at this deficit of 1.4 million. You can see last year at this same point in time, 34,000 was our ending fund balance. But again, we know that from 21 to 22, 22 to 23, a lot has transpired. So if you look at this and just sort of revisit the history of what has transpired over the course of that, that's what you're seeing here, right? You're seeing that we had more expenditures as a result of some of those things. You know, last year didn't really, you know, started to materialize, but then it came full blown, obviously, as we go into there. And as you see these two comparisons month over month, because I will try to keep this here consistently. So you'll be seeing in September, you know, when we meet again, when you see September, October, you will definitely get to see the prior year month as well. So that way we can get that context. Hey, what were we doing a year ago? Or how were we performing a year ago versus where we are now? Right. And that's context for all of us, again, not to revisit things, but just to be mindful of how far we've come, either up or down. Let's talk about cash, right? As of the end of August, we had 29 days of cash on hand. As you can see here, we had $350,000 in the bank accounts. As of that time frame, look back here in August of 22, we had 521,000, right? The borrowing that we're doing necessitates this, right? Because again, as I said, if you look at our overall expenditures month over month, we're trending way further beyond our revenues that are coming in, thus the need to borrow cash to maintain operations until both of those things sort of meet at a crossroad, so to speak.
The cash on hand is about $500,000, just, slightly over $500,000. The burn rate is about $500,000, right? The monthly burn rate is about.
Yes, exactly, David. To your point, it's burn rate probably about 400,000, give or take, month over month. If you add in salaries, benefits, all the other expenditures, yes. So at some point, though, this will catch up and even out with that increase in ADA, and then obviously mitigating spending by making sure that, you know, we're spending just to the budget. And when Dr. Bean and I bring that next budget back, you know, it's going to be locked in terms of the, you know, we're going to be confident with that for the remainder of the year, right? Barring any unforeseen activity or events, so to speak. I'll take questions.
Yep. Delano?
Yes.
Hi, it's Brett.
Yes, sir.
Question on the income statement. For the other outgo, you mentioned the 33,000 is the interest that we're paying.
Interest and fees.
What's that?
Interest and fees.
Okay, interest and fees. But in the budget column next to it, it's 10,000. So we saying we didn't budget for it?
Yes, in that sense, we didn't anticipate having to borrow so much so early. But then there came a point in June, after this budget was approved, which is why that number is still the same. And that's one of the numbers that we're planning on upticking, obviously, because we borrowed quite a bit in July and August. And then again, like I said, that, you know, that was a necessary thing to do.
Just in terms of lessons learned there, where do we miss that? If we already knew we were going to have a shortfall this year.
When you say lessons learned, yeah, one of the things with that is, you know, we were anticipating maybe a little bit more state aid earlier on, right? As an example, PCSGP was one of the things I was anticipating coming in much earlier. That didn't materialize. We had more expenditures. Obviously, we did have some legal fees and things like that that were not budgeted or anticipated coming on board in August and July as well. So those types of things, as I mentioned, there were some unbudgeted expenditures or unforeseen events, if I sort of use that term, that came up.
So do we have any estimation of what we think this number is actually going to be?
Yes. It will be closer to, if we stay on the current trajectory, we'll be looking at somewhere about maybe 45,000 in fees. But again, you know, we're going to have to be careful about the borrowing as we go forward as well, because again, like I say, you know, it's hard money, so the interest and the discounts that are related to that are quite expensive. You're looking at 9-10%.
We note that for our
low end
adjustment, we should correct that. Yeah, because this particular year, it's significant. Prior year, we were running off the revenues from the prior ADA, and we didn't have that consideration. So yeah, let's remember to make that adjustment mid-year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, when the budget comes back, that will be one of the things that will be addressed. Will be that.
Delano, when are we presenting a revised budget to the board? Next month?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
so it'll already be considered there.
We'll get to it then. Yeah. Good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Dr. B will review and get some things approved tonight that will go into the budget as well. And then, as he mentioned, there is a budget revision that will automatically do anyways in the fall to sort of get a better trajectory on where we're headed. Any addition? And thank you guys for all those questions. Those are all great questions. Any other questions on the August financials?
Early still in the year. We're seeing just the first 2 months, July and August. So Delano, did you clarify when we expect the first larger disbursement from the state? When we'll see that cash come in?
Yeah, you will see an uptick here starting in about February and March, right? So because you will have your P1. So timeline here is, and I will next month, I'm going to make a note here to bring back a little timing schedule to show you once P1 is certified, the timeline for that. So P1 is that first snapshot of, hey, let's see how well we're doing in terms of ADA from the start of the school year through the first 4 months or so, right? That's the period 1 attendance summary. We'll get that. It's certified by the state in February, so there is some run out between that report being filed and when it's certified by the state. And from there, once it's certified by the state, that's when we'll see that now uptick that will carry us through June. But in between February and June, there's another certification of attendance in April, as I mentioned, P2. That will be the final one. So when you see this, you'll see a P1 number, a certification in February, a P2 number in April, certification in June, and then there's that backfill that says, hey, we should have paid you $1 million, Doug, but we only paid you $700,000 through the year, so now we owe you $300,000, and then they'll send that, and then it's what will accrue and things like that. So I'll make sure I have that timeline laid out for you guys so you can see it and then understand it a little bit better about this, the state funding, because it's not something easily understood, without seeing it in real life, so to speak.
Thank you. Other questions on budget? Wonderful. Thank you, Delano.
I'll share the check register really quick if you guys want. I provided it to the board. I'll just for transparency purposes, I'll just sort of quickly have it here. And if you guys have any questions on it, feel free to ask.
Yeah, just want to comment that, I really like the new format of the presentation. It's a lot better, make it easier to digest, to read and digest. Very clear. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And publicly, I want to thank Dr. Bean, because he's really the hammer and nail, or the straw that stirs the drink, with this entity, with this organization. And he and I certainly, we discuss a lot of things, and his input is invaluable in terms of making sure all of this come together. So really, Dr. Bean is the guy that gets 99.9% of the credit. And his team, excuse me, not just Dr. Bean, but Dr. Bean and his team.
You're being a little modest, you put all these numbers together, so it's appreciative.
Well, we're great.
Teamwork, buddy, teamwork.
Yeah.
I have a question on the register.
Yes.
It mentions this library curriculum lesson plan. Just curious.
We actually, our kids go through library and are taught lessons. So we purchased some of those for the librarian, or not the librarian, one of our teacher's aides are teaching those lessons, and she actually has a credential. So she's able to.
Like how to find the book, how to check it.
No. When we talk about library, it's more than just library checking in on books, but it's actually researching, going through read alouds, reading comprehension lessons, and things like that. So things that they would do in the classroom as well, but the librarian does it. Not just how to check out.
But speaking of that, there are opportunity for you today.
Yeah, for sure.
So a lot of things.
Is that software installed?
Yes. Yes, very helpful. In fact, I think I would recommend to the board, well, I don't know if this is relevant to the board meeting, but maybe we should talk about it later, but some kind of celebration for our librarian who's a volunteer.
Any other questions? Come up. All right. But thank you, Delano. Again, we'll move forward to number 6, Roman numeral number 6, our consent agenda. Pretty limited. It's simply the approval of the prior minutes. May I ask for a motion to approve the prior minutes?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Felipe, in a second. And David second, and we'll start here at the table. David? Yes, Doug is a yes, and Brett? Aye. Felipe?
Yes.
And online Miller?
Yes,
Thank you. Okay, minutes approved.
yes.
Now
Do
to
you
our
hear me?
action item. Mary Beth, any submissions for comments on our first action item? A, the board will consider and approve IAs collaborating with the if I say it wrong, Chongqing Bashu Secondary School in China, a sister school. Any comments on that? Nope. Or do you see any online?
Comments on
No.
Okay, great. Then we'll have some board discussion. Anything to add, Dr. Bean? I think you set us up pretty well for what we have, and then ultimately it'll develop into an MOU. Is that right?
Correct. Right now, it's just more of a, give us permission to collaborate.
Yeah.
Simple collaboration.
Yeah. As for a motion to approve our school moving forward for collaboration.
I make a motion to approve this.
It's going to be really nice. Thank you, Felipe, and David with a second again. Okay, and then we'll vote on that, starting with David.
Yeah.
And Doug is a yes. Brett? Aye. And Felipe?
Before I vote, I would just mention, it'd be nice if there was a parent associated. But I vote.
Well, on this one, there is a parent, actually. It's Dr. White's wife.
Well,
They're both parents, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
To see that we keep them in the limelight.
Yeah,
So I think that would be nice.
for
I
sure.
like that. Parent
Some kind of
involvement
parent
and
involvement.
visibility.
They get more than her, other parents, to see where it goes.
Okay,
They
Sounds
should- They get writing for them, maybe.
I like that.
Might swerve into something we don't know. So
Yeah.
great. That's
I don't
a
know.
great comment and a yes. And then Miller on the collaboration.
Yes.
Okay. And approved as written there. Second, B, item B, doesn't appear to any comment, so we'll move forward. The board will consider and approve the art, music, and instructional materials block grant plan. It's in our, it's a PDF here in our binder, and it probably bears a little bit of explanation. It's 9 pages, but a lot of it is, again, the components of it. But Dr. Bean, you want to give us an overview on what this will do for us? And
Yes. Make sure Delano's still on.
Delano, stay with us for one moment if you would, and available to speak.
Oh, yeah, I'm still here, folks. I'm not going
Okay.
anywhere.
Because when we ask for the rough numbers, we'll have to get that from you. Anyways, the Arts Music Instructional Material Grant, this is a plan in response to Assembly Bill 181 and amended in AB 185, and that it would release funds for these types of things: visual performing arts, world languages, which we have world languages, math, we have math, science, English language arts, ethnic studies, computer sciences, et cetera, et cetera. So most of the things here would fit under our category. For this particular plan, we put an emphasis on the visual and performing arts. And so you'll see the first part on the music vision plan on page, I believe, 4. And which we had our music teacher, Mr. Alex, really plan out purchases so that we could have a more robust violin class, orchestra, things like that. So we built that into the plan. Next, we then built into the plan a art. And if you look down on page 7, that's where our art plan, how we would unfold that to really build a culture of lifelong learning in the field of arts and to create or inspire creative minds, fostering diversity, inclusivity through art. And then if you look on page 9, this is how the breakdown of this particular grant, how we would spend it. You can see all the expenditures for music as a part of the music plan, and all the expenditures of art. We can also put Mandarin in here because it's a world language. So the hiring of the consultant, Mandarin consultant, who gives PD, because we're able to use the money for professional development. 60,000 could go right there to that. As well as Mandarin curriculum, ELA professional development, we have this year writing. So we have a writing consultant who gives us teachers training and professional development and real-time coaching this year, so we can use money for that. And then, of course, the curriculum that would come with it. So as you can see, this totals around, I believe, Delano, I don't want to give a incorrect number, but give us a rough estimate how much this block grant is for. I don't know if we lost it or not.
He's still there.
He's right, totally. No, I think it's roughly about 160 to 160.
It's for the art and music, it's 196,000.
So understand that all of these expenditures, and we have, what happens is we used general funds for it, unrestricted funds, but now we can tag this grant money to those expenditures. And it becomes a wash, however, on our budget is, and we'll explain this in the next one, it's the extra revenue that's not currently in our budget. So 190,000 is not currently in our revenue side of our budget. It'll show up in next month's revised budget once you approve the plan. Okay, so that is the art, music, and instructional material block. So the emphasis of the money is used on to improve our music program, our art program, and then our instructional professional development in the areas of Mandarin and ELA. Okay, any questions?
So this would be 190K incremental to what is already being shown there, correct? This recent budget that we saw here.
What do you mean by incremental?
So it's additional.
It's additional.
Additional revenue.
Yeah, and we want to spend it all this year. So it's additional revenue this year, 190 something. And we've already earmarked a bunch of things already. We can earmark a bunch of these things, expenses to it when it comes in.
Do we have any sense for, they usually it's, if it's available, if the money's available, do we have any sense if we're going to be able to get 100% of it or?
That'd be a question. Delano, can you answer that question?
Yeah, Brett, could you repeat it? I could not hear the question. You're somewhat far away there.
What's the probability we get 100% of the
100% probability, because we've already received. So we received some of these funds last year. If you recall on the balance sheet, that section that says unearned revenues, that a portion of that amount is sitting in that account. So we've already received, I believe it was 92,000 of it. And then once we sort of move this forward, we'll get the remaining portion.
So then we'd be getting an extra 100 this year, not 190, is that right?
Correct. So the cash is one thing. It's just how we're treating, the activity in a sense, right? So if you look, we've already been advanced the revenues, but because we didn't have any expenditures related, we had to classify them as unearned revenues, right? So if you look at the balance sheet, you will see that a portion of that amount, I believe we've received, and I'll tell you exactly how much we've received. We've received 101,810, and we have about 94,000 that we have not received yet.
So 101 came in, but it's unearned revenue, meaning it wasn't categorized. And now that we have the expenses with your board approval, we can change it from unearned to actually now the block grant. And then additional cash of 90 something will roll in as well that we will 100% categorize with these expenses.
So will net income go up by 190? I guess that's what.
Well, that's a great question. The budget does not reflect any of this money for this year yet. How much of it will reflect in the income portion, Delano? Is it the 190 or the 100?
Yeah, so what will happen is we'll put in the entire 196,000 because the goal is to spend that 196. A great portion of that, those expenditures are already budgeted as unrestricted expenses, right? So basically, we're just going to shift some of that up, which will then free up our general fund in a sense. So to your point, it's a wash on the the revenue and expense side, because it will have 196,000 revenues restricted, 196,000 in expenses restricted. But then what we'll have is then freeing up the unrestricted side of the balance sheet, or if you will, the income statement. And you'll see that when we do the unaudited, the interim reports, excuse me, where we show the unrestricted revenues that came in, the unrestricted expenses. What we're basically doing is just shifting that over into that restricted column, which will then free up our unrestricted fund balance in a sense, if that makes sense to you, Brett. So it's not new revenues in a sense, because we've already received a great majority of that, 100,000 of it. So what we'll do is when we classify this, what you'll see is this: 196,000 in revenues. We'll reduce that unearned revenue by that amount, right? So then it lowers the liability on the balance sheet, increases the revenue on the income statement. The expenses are a wash because they will be washed against the 196 in revenues. Does that make sense?
This 190K, one-time revenue or recurring, in other words, are we gonna expect 190 next year as well?
No, it's a one-time
Gotcha.
revenue.
It's a one-time deal, not a recurring.
Yes, not a recurring. Both of these that Dr. Bean will present tonight are both one time. They're not ongoing revenues. So which is why it's strategic in terms of how we spend it on things that are not going to be recurring.
Yeah, so if you notice things like a lot of this is curriculum, instruments, things like that, that are one-time expenses. We wouldn't assign a salary to it, obviously. We did assign a consultant to it, but even this year, this block grant will cover that, but next year, unrestricted would cover a consultant.
Did you have something? I was just looking at this document, or this is essentially the plan to get this funding, right?
This is plan to how we would use the money for the fund, yeah.
Right. And so what I'm looking at here, this really changes the climate in these aspects of these particular curriculums, like the music, the art, and the ELA, right?
That's right.
And then so you're spelling this out here. This is the outline of how you're going to do that, to spend the money and get on that. Right. And so my question would be, that all sounds great. That's great. A lot of money, a lot of say. So, but still, that there'd be an instructor be involved in this. I'm going to just pick one here, the music plan.
Yeah.
So that would be Alex, right?
Correct.
So Alex is aware that he's got this substantial extra work here for him to do here, right?
He actually helped me I had Alex, the art teacher, they helped me put the plan together.
Okay.
So they knew.
They do know that this is coming because it's, it's great.
Yeah.
It looks great on the paper. I just want to make sure they're aware this is coming. Yeah. Because we need, because if we execute this and set to a satisfactory condition, we get the money, right?
We get the, we're gonna get the money anyways. We just have to say, this is how we use the money.
This is how we did it.
Yeah.
This is what we did.
Right.
We did that, right?
This is dead, so.
So that's how we comply.
Correct. That's how we comply.
We did all these things. Right?
Yes.
That's
Should we,
great.
what's called, should we ever be monitored for the use of the money? We would present them, this is the plan. Here are all our receipts. Here's
Show
the
them
accounting for it.
violence, show them
Right.
the violence we bought, show them the art materials we bought.
Yep.
show them-
Yep.
So if I could just interject a little something right there, 100%, both of these funds will require some reporting at the end, or usually annually, depending on how the state sees fit. So there are ongoing reports that will be filed, if not a final report. So there are multiple areas where we have to report back to the state how we've spent these funds.
If you feel good, Delano,
about the reporting. It's not overly cumbersome, which it sounds like it's not. That's a really good sign. This is, just point out, just for audience and board, this is why North Compass or Delano's firm is valuable to us, because they're continually surveying the assembly bills and the money that becomes available. And Dr. Bean, between you and he, finding this opportunity, and the next one we'll talk about, I just commend you, because these are revenue sources that enhance the school. Some of the revenue, we would expend the expense anyway. And so this is really good for us. I don't want to say it's music to my ears because that's like a pun and nobody likes puns, but this is a really good grant.
Well, what I like is that the proposed curriculum here really makes the school valuable.
Yes,
That's, to me, is what I see. Yeah, you guys are talking about.
it doesn't take us off mission, it enhances our mission.
Yeah, it enhances the mission. It's right down the line. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Who was the art teacher?
That's STEAM, right? So Teresa, she does art in STEAM.
That's very neat. Any other questions or thoughts about the block grant for art, music, and instruction? I'll make the motion. Oh, go ahead. No, you're good.
I got real quick.
Yeah.
So this is all looks great. We need to promote this. Where's this posted, Mr. Moon?
This will, well, once you approve it, we put it on the website.
You're gonna put it like on the website?
Yep.
Probably, I don't wanna say prettier than this, but, you know, lay it out.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be pretty. Just put it up. I'm just gonna put it up there.
Whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's, I think that up to you, but, because we need to advertise this to our parent, not necessarily to you. Yeah, that's our goal, but I'm parents, and so they know.
What would we put up?
What would we put up? Just the plan. That the way you see it right here. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the state doesn't have a template. So usually they give you a template that they want you to fill, like the next one, right? You'll see is a template. This one's no template, so we just put together a plan, some expenditures, and a vision for both the music and the art program. And so that's in here.
So that covers the cost that we already have.
Correct. That's correct. And instead of unrestricted paying for it, this block grant pays for it.
Yeah, I think, you can promote the school as more than the two languages, right? It's also art as a language.
That's right.
Or music as a language. Site definitely is, we could beef that up to
Sure.
highlight that. So there's a real focus on it. So there's a real plan. I mean, I guess we're thinking about it as you guys are talking, saying we're gonna put it on the site. But who's the visionary behind the music plan? It'd be great to have Alex really lay out what that program looks like. And because the augmented reality, I know that's not the STEAM part, right? That's another class, but that gets a lot of the press, let's say, or focus.
Right,
but the STEAM program here doesn't necessarily get much
Right.
emphasis. So, who's really the visionary behind that? And if it's Barisa, then you need to really put that out. And
Yeah.
a marketing.
Just remember, there's a lot of things to do, so I don't have time to really promote these kinds of things on the website. But this is, I mean, the music section of this is Mr. Alex's vision. And I agree with your point that he put it very nicely in the plan, the 3-year plan, how you roll out these things. I think he should promote that on the website in a particular way. I appreciate that.
He's done that before. He's on the website.
Yeah.
This is the music program. His vision for it is there already.
Yeah.
He did a very good job. You should stand up.
Yeah. I'm taking
You're
notes.
right. You can see the structure of it right here. He's thought it out very well. I see
Yeah.
Raymond. I see Raymond right here, 683 specialists. Yeah. I could tell that he's got it laid out.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks great.
I think as we begin to deliver this additional aspects to the curriculum, it's worth celebrating. And, kind of tooting our own horn, so to speak, but especially with Alex, like you said, who was passionate, then on the art side as well, displaying some of the art, initial art, and just forecasting what's coming.
That's a good idea too. Because we can use the website to display some of the art activities too.
That's good.
I think that's.
Very exciting.
We would need.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider, by the way, even though actually Brisa has art background, and she's very good with art. Eventually, I would like to, if we're gonna make it a big deal, bring in an art teacher.
So I gotta tell you one thing we did, I know it's slightly tangential, but when our students in our other school would produce art, we would hold it at the school. And so they would do many pieces of art during the year.
Yeah.
Then we would ask them, what's your favorite piece? We would then, we framed it. And then we had an open house and we had the parents come buy it for
Yeah.
3 times more. And we funded all of our art supplies the next year.
Yeah.
It was so fun. And
That's
just
great.
tuck it away. This may not be the year, but boy,
We'll tuck that away.
young people
Back
can
of
really
our mind.
produce. So, well, I'll move to then the motion that we go ahead and approve the block grant to be submitted and that we'll benefit from it. As for a second, David on second, and we'll start then with our vote. David?
Yeah.
And Doug is a yes as well. Brad?
Aye.
And Felipe?
Yes.
And Miller? I may not see Miller on that one. We still have a majority. He may have dropped off by technology, so we'll just record our four votes if we may. That brings us to item C. The board will consider and approve Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant Program. That's also a document provided. It may take a moment just for refresher if you need to. It's a Word doc, not a PDF. It's the IIREGD. Dr. Bean, would you do a summary on this one for us as well, or Delano, whoever be more appropriate?
No, I'll do a summary. Thank you. All right, so for this grant, again, it's a portion of money set aside from the state of California to really help with the learning loss that may have occurred in the past several years of our students. And so many of the expenditures you'll see include how we plan to intervene and support for that learning loss, recover that learning loss, right? It will be reported to the state each year. And as you can see here on page, I believe this 1, 2, 3, on page 3, it tells us when each of these reports are due and how much we spent in each of these categories. So here are the allowable expenses of this table. I've highlighted what IIA will be using. It's this money for. Let me just go 100%. I can't see this for some reason. Hold on. All right. So if we first start with instructional learning through these next several years, we want to focus on intervention. So one of the 2 cost units, one is response to intervention for English, and then response to intervention for Mandarin. So half of Ms. Brown's salary is actually doing that now. And that is, she is in charge of our small group instructions on the English side. And so we've actually started what we call English language development groups, where we're pulling over 100 students who are pulled twice a week, and to get actually that's not true. Actually pulled Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday 4 times a week, where they get 20 to 30 minutes of explicit English instruction. So she's in charge of that. The other half of the time, she's a teacher in the classroom. So Sandy's the same thing. She has created Mandarin language development small group instruction, where Mandarin students are pulled for 2 times a week to get extra Mandarin support for students who are far behind, but also for students who need enrichment. So those students who are well above their peers in Mandarin will meet as a group to get more Mandarin enrichment in Mandarin. So you can see here that we can already assign expenditures to that. And then if you move down, we can also spend money on programs and materials designed to accelerate our students. So that's where iReady Math and Reading could be used. We're already paying for these things, but now we can shift the category resource code from unrestricted to this particular grant. Level learning for Mandarin. So those are all programs on the English side and the Mandarin side to support, to accelerate pupil learning. And then if you scroll down, we have more through implementing an SEL program called Character Counts. So we are allowed to spend money on social emotional learning. And so this year we're implementing Character Counts. Our teachers have been, our lead teachers have been trained, and we'll soon be training all staff. As I've already said, we can use the money for student diagnostic and progress monitoring. And that's where the cost unit of iReady, math and reading, and then learning level come in. So it's pretty easy to assign this money into the programs that we're already doing. And so Mary Beth and Janice and Delano have the task of every time I approve an expenditure to assign this particular grant to those expenditures. So with the approval of the board tonight, we can then use this as our plan. Now, this is a template that all schools use, and I just simply highlighted those areas and then inserted specifically how the expenses we can, label our expenses. So that's pretty much it. And then Delano, you can tell them how much we're getting for this grant.
Estimate of maybe what we would qualify for.
Yeah, so for this grant, the learning and recovery, the school received 162,175. That was revised down from a prior portion amount of 189,000. So the state revised that amount down less $27,000. So the school will get 162,175.
162. You guys can hear that?
162.
Yeah.
Is that, are those funds we already have? We have to apply for that. I guess I'm still not clear on this restricted versus unrestricted.
So we already get the money, and I'm not sure how much we have received from the state. We get that money.
We received all of that one.
We
For that one, again, we've received all of it during 22-23, towards the end of 22-23. And again, it's in that amount on the balance sheet of unearned revenues.
Unearned revenue. So we're trying to shift it out of unearned revenues. And
Into
because
the
we're
income
already
statement.
we're already spending money on these things using unrestricted funds, now we can shift it all to this grant.
So when we first received the money, is it because we applied or the state just deployed?
No,
it?
so the practice for that is that the state will automatically, if you are an existing charter school, and normally there are certain criteria for receiving it, would be you have prior year ADA or something like that, you've been in existence at least 1 year, then you're eligible to receive it. It's usually, that type of, because it's usually set by the governor's budget as an example. So if you recall 2 years ago or so, a year ago, if you will, he when he signed that budget, he included these one-time revenue streams in there. Normally, Britt, these are derived from when the state has a surplus in revenues for that year. They'll sort of go ahead and dole out to, various sectors within the budget, right? So education would be one that will get some of that surplus. And usually the best way for them to do that would be with one-time revenues, right? So that's the way they do it. In years that there's a surplus, because it doesn't always happen. Maybe next year there won't be a surplus, so you won't see anything like this, right? And in prior years when we were, I don't want to use the word flush with more revenues or cash at the state level, these things happen, but they fluctuate obviously from year to year depending on, the
It's
economy and
automatic,
things like that.
already reached out to the schools, and then it's up to the school to recognize it or not. If
Correct.
not, we have to return the money back.
100%. So both of these grants have an expiration date of about 3 years or so from now, right? So the state does give ample opportunity to spend it, and once that timeline has expired, then obviously if you haven't spent it, or have it board approved to be spent, then the state will more than likely send an invoice back for those funds, which is certainly what we want to avoid at all costs here. So that's the reason Dr. Bean is pushing forward with this right away.
So it does not help our cash flow situation, obviously, but it helps our balance sheet, helps us to free our unrestricted funds, because we can now categorize these expenses that we're already incurring. We can categorize this particular grant, and now the state won't ask for the money back, and our balance sheet looks healthier. And then our budget, the revised budget will show this as revenue coming in. But again, it washes out.
But I mean, inevitably, it will help the cash flow, because the cash that we were using for this expense, we're now being reimbursed for by the state, so it frees up that money. So
Correct.
use for something else.
But not this grant, we've already received the money, so we're not gonna get reimbursed for the money. But the other grant, yes, we'll get the additional.
Right, we get first, but we don't get it.
Correct.
Which is almost like getting it.
Yeah.
Convoluted, but yeah, okay. I'm okay.
And it looks like there are 6 total blocks on every year you're gonna submit, right?
What's that?
And 2024, 2015 through 2029.
Well, we have until then to spend all the money.
To spend the money, not,
Yes.
to submit every year.
No, we don't have to submit every year. We just have to submit the report of our expenditures. But Delano and I, we can spend all that money this year. Based
Yeah,
on
so
all-
oh, sorry, Dr. B, finish your thought and I'll go ahead.
Oh, that's it. Go ahead, Delano.
Yeah. So yeah, the state does, as I mentioned, they give you some amount of leeway in terms of multiple years to spend this one-time fund, right? And I believe on that one, David, you had said 2029, and this is what, so they give you almost 6 years to work up a plan, and you could probably, take very small bites of the cheese every year if you wanted to in terms of expensing this, right? Or you could do it, what Dr. Bean is doing is sort of do it, this does help our budget in a sense, as I mentioned, so there's a need to sort of do it that way as well. But the state does give us plenty of leeway in terms of the number of years to spend these funds. And that's pretty standard across the board for most of those one-time revenues that we'll get.
And it makes sense because the one time goes to districts. And districts will have millions and millions of dollars they'll have to spend down in these 5 years. Well, we're actually considered a district, but we're a tiny one, so we can spend that money pretty fast.
Which will make us look better. Makes our budget.
The budget, yes,
Makes the
absolutely.
budget look better by shifting the fund.
Mhm.
And it's been everyone.
That's right. Mhm.
That's the real value for us.
Right,
It's later on.
right.
Any other questions or entertain a motion to approve the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant Plan? Motion to approve. Brett, and David second, and starting with David. And Doug's yes, Brett, aye, and
Yes.
Felipe, and Miller. Oh, Miller's not on, I forgot. Good, we'll approve it then with those 4 votes as well. Great items. Thank you, Dr. Bean. Thank you, Delano, as well. We moved to Roman numeral 8, some closing items. Board members' opportunity, we'll do kind of round robin, just share some thoughts, questions, or appreciations for our executive director or other staff. Well, we don't have Miller, so we'll just, I could randomly go. I usually finish with Felipe, but I want to start with Felipe.
Okay, start with me, easy. So you kind of mentioned the library, Helen. November 1st, I believe she's having eye surgery.
Yes.
So if you're planning to do something for her, whatever, keep that in mind. And just to show her commitment, I was talking to her today, after she's having corneal replacement. Right? She's plan is to bring bunches of those books home. And while she's laying there in bed, she's gonna be sorting them out. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Incredible. Where is she? Who brought her to us? You did, Felipe? What a great resource, man. She's amazing.
She's amazing, right? And so I've been working with her in building up the library, right?
Yeah.
Certain aspects of their bookshelves, things like that. Even tomorrow, we're gonna get a delivery of book cards. Cards, we're gonna have some book cards, because she needs book cards to move books around,
Yes.
whatever she's doing with it.
Right.
I don't know really what she's doing. She just asked for book cards, specific book cards. So we were able to find those. Tomorrow, there'll be a delivery here at 8 in the morning with all the book cards that she needs and stuff like that. So that'll be.
That's awesome.
And just so you know, that's coming out of it's not coming out of this budget here. It's coming out of the.
Is it from the PTO?
No.
No.
It'll be
Just
The Felipe Fund,
The
Felipe,
Felipe
yeah,
philanthropy.
the Delgado. Right.
And only because my wife said so. I said
I'm most concerned if there's assembly required.
Yeah. So that's going on. So, and again, if you haven't been to the library lately, go take a look. The other item that I had is last month, we had that youth consulting.
Yeah,
the one that
Pearl.
did The Chinese program and stuff like that. She's here.
Mhm.
She was like a week here. She worked with the student. How is that going? How's that rolling out?
Yeah, she's
I did see
fantastic.
Some of that. I did see some of it going on. The library, the separation, they're working with certain students and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But overall, all the rest of the teachers.
Oh, I mean, it's been invaluable, her support of our teachers. She goes into, she went to the classroom, gave them updates, but they still have Zoom. She still supports and develops our group work and things like that. So she's been great. She's planning to come down, I think, in a week or two to work with teachers again, and then, yeah, and then she'll continue.
Yeah.
She'll continue supporting us.
Since I'm familiar with that, man, familiar and I was here when all that stuff. I didn't get a chance to really talk to her. She's running out the door to catch her plane.
Yeah.
But she comes next month. I'd like to spend a little time with her. Since I'm.
I was just curious in the Prop 39 responses that we got, I know you said it was a strong response. Do we have a goal that we're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, our goal was 100%, right? But I think we're 15 away from 100%, which is really good, better than last year's percentage.
Yeah. What's the bearing then on ability to get more classrooms?
Yeah, when I submit this thing, I'm going to submit it for a lot more students than last year's Prop 39. So they're going to have to, if they approve it, which they will, then they'll have to provide spacing for all those students.
Are we looking at maxing the site here?
Honestly, if right now we're busting to the seams, but if we had their 4 classrooms back here, man, we would be easily close to 500 students, right? They'd have to put the Irvine Virtual Academy somewhere else. I know our intention is still to really try to get a location for middle school. So I've been in one conversation with a church over here. Doesn't look like it's going to work out this year coming up, but possibly another year. But I still want to get that middle school out as soon as possible. So any networking would be, a push to finding just a small location for, 3 to 6 classes for middle schoolers. Otherwise, I'm really pushing. I mean, the way I'm writing the Prop 39 though, is I'm writing the Prop 39 to assume that we are going to house the middle school here. So it forces them to kind of give us the space.
Go next. I want to say thank you for the 2022-2023 yearbook. This is fantastic, and I'll deliver one to our former board member, Dr. Jolene Smith.
Cool.
2, if we could get one more for Dr. David Sun. I know you're working on that one. These are just wonderful. If they're more left.
We have extras.
We
have extras.
Thank you for including us. I know some will receive these because they're parents, but I'm not a parent, so I really appreciate it. Just a whole lot of joy packed in this book, reflected by a really great year again last year. Dr. Bean. It was a stellar year. And you were a big part of leading it out with this staff, just unified them, and it made a difference for the kids. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, where's David?
I just want to comment, I think that, this board meeting becomes a much more effective than previous. This is one of the best.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Getting better, and
I
better.
mean, yeah, it's very direct. I think your report, the update, everything is succinct and to the point. And I think Delano also did a great job in preparing the financials. So
Yes.
board members, grateful. I just have a comment, especially in the context considering the expansion, future potential expansion into other parts of Orange County. And I think I mentioned one time about leadership development, right? You gotta have the leadership reserve
Yes,
and in preparation for the potential expansion.
yes,
And typically you got two ways: develop within and get them from outside. And so I strongly suggest using two approaches. I see a lot of very good employees such as Maribeth. Every time we're sitting here, we know she has done an incredible job.
yes.
Yeah. Obviously, the other staff members just want to kind of remind you that perhaps an internal leadership development program.
Absolutely. Oh, don't worry, I'm building the leadership pipeline
Yeah.
internally. So when we have a central office,
Right.
Mary Beth would be leading
Right.
the business managers and these other
Yeah.
schools. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm
And
definitely
she's
think through it.
considered one of the co-founders.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
Mary
the
Beth.
company, she would be entitled to a co-founder status. almost.
Yeah,
Anyway, just comment. I'm sure Dr. Dean probably have a lot of thoughts and plan.
yes, yes. I
At
do.
some point, the board would be interested. At least I'm interested in learning.
Ah, Okay, I like that.
Okay.
All right.
Please.
I'd like to be considered in that leadership.
Delano, we gotta get you a administrative credential. Get you administrative credential. We'll find you a spot. Delano. Yes, how about all of you guys?
I think you would be best served keeping me out of the classroom, Dr. Bean.
Yeah, there you go, Delano.
Character trait that we're promoting each month.
Yeah.
that we had on the wall.
Yeah.
Still doing that this.
So this year we switched to character counts. And so once all of our teachers gets the training, then we're gonna start putting up things on the wall. But our students are actually getting that each in our assembly. So tomorrow's assembly is I believe on trustworthiness. Thank you. So yes, we're working with our students on it. And we've narrowed it down from a character trait a month to more like now we have 6 character traits. Core values that we're using.
Well, that's for a motion for adjournment then, for all the public, the future dates are already published, but motion to adjourn. Okay, Brett has the motion. I'll do a second and we'll start on my left, David.
Yep.
And there's a yes, Brett. Yes. And Felipe.
Yes.
And a special thank you to our staff and those that participate now and will watch later on. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Good night, folks. Have a great evening. Good night.
Thank
everybody.
you, Delano.
Bye, Molly.
Thanks, Molly.
Before
Molly,
8
thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Molly.
Italy.
Bye.
Bye, Molly.
What time is it? What time is it?